Yeah. Hello,
Hello,
Angelica.
Jazz. How's it going?
Good, good. I'm off to a great week. How about you?
Good, ready to get into these exciting topics today.
I know these are going to be some good ones. So, hello everyone. If you're new here, this is JA Millionaire Circle. I am Jasmine, and this is Angelica. Here on JA Millionaire Circle, this is the brainchild of two ambitious Latina women. We come from underprivileged backgrounds, and we cover topics. Everything from lifestyles, childhood trauma, you name it. The goal of our show is to share experiences from our journey as we continue to push for more, and hopefully you guys can draw some inspiration and motivation from us. So, our topics today, we're going to be covering two pretty fun, interesting topics. One that Angelica came up with, one that I came up with this week. And the first one is we're going to talk about friendships, boundaries, outgrowing friendships. And the second topic we're going to cover is climbing the socioeconomic ladder. So, I'll let you start, Angelica, with the first one about friends. Where was your head at? Like what was coming into mind that you're like, we need to talk about this?
What was coming into my mind, thank you for the introduction. You are so lovely. It's been hard, moving. This is now like my third state, in 1 year. And I know that you know the feeling of that because you've moved from state to state and you're the first one that's left in your family also. But what's been heavy on my heart is just the people that you end up as you're transitioning and upgrading and going through life, the people that you leave behind. So it hurts because you invite people to visit you and you think, oh wow, like, you think nothing's wrong with it. You're like, my friends are gonna come and visit and they visit and it's like, oh shoot, we don't have anything in common anymore. And then it's odd, right? Because you go through life and it's very difficult because you go through life and we come from a very different background with tumultuous relationships and we think it's okay to have certain relationships. Oh, I went through college with this person, they belong to be in my life. Or oh, we went through very hard times together, they stuck it out with me when I was broke. And then they come into my new life and I've already done so many career swaps and I've done, you know already pursued more than my undergrad because my friends prior to moving, that was their ceiling. Like, okay, I'm gonna get my degree. And it's not a bad thing when you transition and evolve, but I just didn't think that moving was going to have me evolve the way that it did. I wasn't expecting the growth. So that's been heavy because I feel that a lot of people don't talk about it enough, especially coming from the two backgrounds that we come from with our childhood and then transitioning over to the corporate world and just finding our little medium. It's very hard because I would feel so bad when things wouldn't go my friends' ways whenever they would visit. And I found myself over and over after they would visit, just like, dang, what did I say wrong? Or I was always worried about where did that come from?
I don't know why this happens. I'm gonna leave it in just because it's funny.
God's telling me to be nice. Oh, that was odd.
It's
It threw me
funny.
off, but
Yeah.
it was just hard. And I love everyone.
Someone is messing with you, I swear. I know your husband's in your iPad somehow. Okay.
I don't want to waste too
So,
much time on it, but
no, no, but so you were saying every time they come visit, something seems off, and every time it's off, you're like, did I do something wrong?
yeah,
So what have you
experience.
basically determined after that? Like after you've thought about it?
Yeah, well, even family. I don't want to pin it all just on my friends, because there are different experiences that have got me to come to this conclusion. Like even going back home, and I'm like, oh crap, like this isn't what I like to do anymore. And
Mhm.
um, I feel that there. I watched this video and we were talking about it. It's about Snoop Dogg and he talks about
Yeah.
this gap being in your friendship, and he's like, you're here and your friends are, or whoever your family, they're down here, and it's like you could either go back and stop growing or either way the gap has to close, right? And so being up here is better because your friends can close the gap and just meet you, or your family, right, level up with you. But not everybody. Now there's just the gap. Like there's no. I don't want to step down, but it's like they don't want to level up.
Yeah.
And that's hard because I don't want to change my standards or my experiences just because it's evolved past their comfort zone. I feel like that's a unfair thing to do to myself, and I feel like it's also unfair for me to feel the need to consistently apologize for loving the finer things in life. And I just feel like it's just not my job anymore to dim the experience for other people's comfort. You know what I mean?
Right. I completely understand. So
Yeah.
what I think is happening, because that's happened to all of us, as as we've been striving for more, striving for better, is that by you climbing and you becoming better, like the better version of you for yourself, because you want a better life, it in turn can shine a light on their inadequacies. And the more you shine, the more their inadequacies shine to them. And the more they're like, all you do is remind them of all the things that they're lacking, whether it's the education or the lifestyle or the class or the etiquette, all these things that you're doing so well now. And it has everything to do with them, not you. So when they leave, like you're like, oh my God, what did I do? But it had nothing to do with you, it was something to do with them. And then just that you guys are just not on the same vibration anymore. And that's I had a hard time with that too, because like when I was doing my own personal development journey, a lot of these books were like, get the losers out of your life, and otherwise you're not going to be able to level up. And at that time, I could only see in black and white. Like I had no gray, I had no compassion. I was in that robotic state of mind that I talked about before. And so I just harshly started cutting people off. I'm like, you're not on my level, you're not going where I'm going. Cut off, cut off, cut off. And that didn't matter if you were friends or family. Like I was just brutal because I was like, yay, that was the instructions.
Um,
But now I have realized, and like this quote that I told you, that I heard Marlon Wayans actually share on a podcast that he was on. I can't remember, the School of Greatness. He was getting interviewed, and he said this quote. He said, everyone deserves to eat, but not everyone deserves to eat at your table. And I was like, that is so profound, because what that, what the way I took that, my interpretation of that is everyone deserves compassion. Everybody deserves empathy, compassion, but not everyone deserves to be in your life sitting at your table. So I've learned that, you can be kind, you can try to be patient and understanding and kind of meet them where they're at, but that just may mean they're not welcome at your table until they can level up. Nothing personal. It's just, they haven't closed the gap yet.
right. Or, they could be used just metaphorically speaking, I'd say like an anchor. And it's like, well, you can't sail if you're always with this anchor.
Hmm.
And it sucks because even with family, like, I've taken one of my siblings to high tea here in New York at the plaza, had the whole yards experience, the caviar, the champagne, and she got upset because she had to pay her way. And she made fun of it, and she was like, I can't believe I spent $150 for finger sandwiches. And I was like, what? It just threw me off because I was like, it's the experience. It wasn't even finger food sandwiches. Like it was like the most fancy sandwiches you could have. So that really hurt. And it just sucks because like I've gotten to a point now where I'm just done babysitting other people's discomfort. The life that I want isn't for everyone. And I know that
Yes.
you can relate with me on that. And it's just unfair. And I feel like I've stopped dimming my appetite for life just because they couldn't handle the menu. You know what I mean? Like,
And that's why
it's
you have to find other people that have a greater hunger for life, more than yours, so that you can close that gap. And because we want to be stretched, we want to push further. So we have to find those people that are going to make us strive for even more, which was, again, one of the reasons that I was drawn to you immediately. I'm like, God, this girl has big dreams, and it made me realize I'm not dreaming big enough. But I am of that mindset of I want to be better. I want to be greater. And if I had met you and I wasn't in that mindset, you might have intimidated me or might have made me feel like, you know, it all depends on, and this is the power of somebody's mindset and perspective. Wherever
It's
their head's at, will determine the type of experience it is.
it's
It,
just so odd. Like I've had situations. I would say this year I've learned, right? Like I've been around people, and I know you've been in these
Mhm.
certain places with me, and it's like either they stay on their phone for a long period of time and they kind of just disassociate, after a while, or like if I do go to a nice place and they are around, I've experienced it alone too without you. Um, and I go to this nice, vibrant place and I'm enjoying it, and it's not the hood rat music, they kind of go and disappear. And like, I don't, they're gone for like 30 minutes. I don't know if it's like to go smoke or, you know what I mean? And it's just so, I feel like it's just some people don't have the respect to kind of be, you know what I mean? Like, you should just go if you're not enjoying your time, but don't make me suffer because I enjoy the finer things. And it's so
Yeah.
hard. Like, I'm like, dude, we grew up together, you're my dog, like, you're my homie. And it's just like, when I get embarrassed because when he sees me appear and then I bring, people from my past, and it's just like, dang, like they're still where I met them. And that's hard because I don't want anybody to feel inadequate. That's the last thing I want. But I also don't want to be around people who just want the degree and a couch. Like, I'm not here to just stick around and survive. Everyone is supposed to survive, but I want more than survival, you know?
Yeah, I know. It's such a hard position to be in because I have done that too, where I've brought my family to really, oh, bless you. I
Mhm.
brought my family to very high-end restaurants and high-end places, and in my heart, in my perspective, I wanted to show you a beautiful experience because I was so excited when I got to have this for the first time. But
Same.
I didn't realize that I was putting them in such an uncomfortable position.
Mhm.
They don't know etiquette. They were afraid they were going to do something wrong. And yeah, they looked at the menu and they're like, "Good God, this is so expensive." And again, we were looking at it through different lenses, and now through my past experience, I don't think I would do that again. I don't think I would put them through that again because I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. Just because this is my lifestyle and these are the things that I enjoy doesn't necessarily mean that these are the things that they enjoy. I took my mom to the Nutcracker. I took her to a very fancy restaurant, and like my poor mom was so uncomfortable. But she did her best. So I just realized, okay, I'm pushing them too far out of their comfort zone. It wasn't their desire to grow and stretch, it was mine. So meet them where they're at. And the other comment I was going to say, like the disassociating, I think that's just because they're not in their comfort zone. They don't know how to act. They don't know where they're at. They clearly feel like the outsider, so they're like, I guess being on your phone is a very big comfort zone. It's like, okay, this is something I know versus if I sit here and engage in this conversation,
Make a
you've got
fool out of myself.
exactly. I'm not going to know
Mhm.
how to talk. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not educated enough, or who knows whatever other limiting beliefs that they have about themselves. So it's easier to either go walk away, while they're out with you and do who knows what, or be on the phone or whatever. I think that I think it's all just coming from a sense of discomfort. And this is where we have to find our like-minded individuals so that we can continue to keep growing and expanding and getting excited about the next level. But doesn't
You're
mean you have to
so
cut.
right.
It's just you got to meet them where they're at. Again, don't doesn't mean that you have to keep bringing them in your life because, like you said, they could be an anchor. So that just means they're not. You can't wine and dine them. You can't bring them to the same places you go. Maybe when you're in town, you can meet them somewhere, that they hang out or something like that. But even then, I mean, that would feel uncomfortable to you to go
Yeah.
too far backwards.
Yeah. It's
Like
just,
when I go back to like my hometown, there's certain places where I'm like, oh my goodness, I used to frequent these places and now I'm like, I stick out like a sore thumb.
yeah. And you used one of the best examples, went out with your family member and she's like, you look like the owner of the place. And I get
Yeah.
that same feel too when I step into
Yeah.
certain places. They think that way too about me. Shows up in a suit and I'm in my high heels, and the respect we demand, and it's like you can't go to those places anymore. And it's so hard because it's like, dang, like, yeah, every year I go back home, or even when I was living there, and all of my cousins and us, we go for the walk or whatever, right? Thanksgiving walk, family walk, but it doesn't mean that I participate, or if I do, like, but I just know that every year we're gonna get together and we're gonna cheese and then that's it. But it's hard because those are like family traditions that you grow up and you're like, this is just what we grew up doing or whatever. But it can be hard when you start to really evolve and then you look at it and you're like, what am I doing? Or what am I thinking? Or you know what I mean? And I've always, before I've been married, have showed up in my high heels and I was always just dressed for the sala. Like, where you going? I'm like, I don't know. I just feel good to dress this way. And it's just hard, like, or people that I would go out with before for brunch or for dinner, they're like, oh, there you go with your high heels. And it's like, it makes me feel bad. And so I'm glad that I have moved and I'm trying to build my network and connections out here because now I know what to kind of look for with our similarities and what we have, in common. And it's just, it sucks. And no one talks about the painful part of this journey that, comes with it. And I feel that too, it's hard because I have been working out for a very long time, and I go hard in the gym. I take care of myself, but I also find that there are a lot of people that just don't, and I don't have a problem with it, but it's like if you're going soft in your physical, taking care of your temple that you're supposed to, that God gifted you, like you're gonna go soft on all the other that you have, all the other areas that you have in your life. And I just feel that it's unfair to God that, we're not taking care of ourselves physically and mentally. You're supposed to be here to do your best. God hated lazy people. And so it just sucks to just go back to that. And I don't
Yeah.
mean that I'm above it. Like, I'm not trying to be like, oh, look at me, I'm brutal. You know what I mean? But it's just like, I feel that I'm becoming a better judge of character because it's like, if you're not going to pour into yourself and drink water and, be strong, like Mondays are my favorite day of the week for a reason because I'm a very driven individual inside and outside. And so I feel like that's also important. And it's very hard. Like, I've gotten my sisters to get on the bandwagon that Mondays are just a fresh start every day. You don't have to wait to a New Year's to have a New Year's resolution. You can start every Monday being the best version of yourself instead of just sitting back and letting the dates come and you try to apply that. You're putting so much more pressure on yourself for that than you could be every week.
Yeah. So would you say that you are learning how to set boundaries and maybe outgrow friends?
I would say yes. I am learning that. I am, like, having a little bit more compassion, and you've helped me along the way with that. Um, I just feel that it gets lonely. It gets lonely when you do that. It's lonely at the top. Now I understand why there is only 1% of wealthy people in the world, or because half of the people aren't willing to do the things that it takes to get there. Some people's happiness is a sofa and the lights are on, and that's fine. Like you said, different mountain heights are different. But I've gotten to a point now where it's just like these are my expectations for myself. And so holding the bar for people that I know that could meet me there is better because now I'm not trying to have expectations, but it keeps me from being disappointed. So I'm just not expecting anything anymore. And I'm just, you know what? I know that's the way this person is. So I'm going to be able to apply these boundaries to this person because they haven't learned. You know what I mean? And so I feel like it's unfair to babysit because I'm 30 and I'm like, okay, this is a lot, like but at the same time, I feel like, a long time ago, my sister told me, you were not only the sister we needed, our parents needed you also because there wasn't someone healthy to, hey, you should be having dinner at 5 p.m. and, you shouldn't be late to reservations. It's disrespectful to valuable people. And so learning when you do get a taste of those expectations that are normal and good versus going back home and your cousin's late for dinner or whatever, they show up, they're not dressed, they smell like a pound of weed. You know what I mean? Like it's just hard to like set those boundaries with those people, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see it being a little bit harder with family. I mean, again, I was very cutthroat when I was younger, so I cut off whoever I needed to cut off in order to survive, or, to move forward. But Yeah, I totally understand that. I can understand the feeling of feeling lonely, and I think it's just because you're transitioning. Remember how we were talking about you're a hermit crab, you're going from one shell to another, and you got caught between your shell. And I feel like that's why you feel a little lonely, is because you're like, I'm realizing all the people I have to kind of distance and let go. And it's sad because you are mourning a little bit because you're like, that was the version of me. And it's so like, I'm proud of that version of me because that version of me got me here, and it's a bittersweet evolution because I feel the same thing, with me is like that woman got me this far and I love her for it, but now I have to keep moving and keep growing.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
there's
And
nothing
not,
against it. We're not like measuring people by those things, but I agree with you. It's just you get older, but it does get it's a lonely path. It really is, and it's hard. So anybody that is watching this, hopefully they get some clarity from it and know that they're just not alone in this transition, because trust me, if it was up to me, I would enjoy going out to Dos Amigos and Oak Cliff, but every weekend, like, I don't.
I think we need to explain why we can't. I don't think people might understand that because, like, we could, we could, but here's the problem. We worked so hard to get here. If I engage in that behavior, I would only go backwards because you become who you hang around. So I would be getting drunk. I would be getting in trouble. I would be picking up the lingo or the way that they're talking. I would be picking up on their body language. I'd be picking up on all of that. And I didn't work this hard to go backwards. So I cannot for those reasons. And I have to stay disciplined in working towards my goals. And sometimes that means we don't get to go out. If we want to have a healthier body, sometimes we can't go out and eat and we can't go out to drink. We have to, like Angelica said, we have to go be in the gym. We have to make sure we're sleeping right, we're eating well, we're drinking our water, because in order to perform our best, and that is mentally, we're thinking sharp, we're able to make good decisions because we're making big decisions. I am making big dollar decisions with my life, and so is Angelica. So we can't exactly be hungover and foggy. Of course, there's a time and a place for it, but when we understand why people pick up those lifestyles of drinking, eating, a lot of life of gluttony, is because they're trying to distract from life. They're not happy with their life and they're trying to distract from their life. We are happy and we want more of this happiness. So we have to be present. We have to be here. We have to be engaged. Even on those hard days, it's still so fulfilling. Even I can go weeks without drinking and I'm like, I don't think I want to take a drink right now because then I can't be sharp. Right now, I have to be sharp. I have to make these, big life decisions. And then there's always a time and a place to, pull up a glass and toast to your champagne and your accomplishments. There's always a time. But to give it to yourself all the time, then it's not even, you didn't earn it anymore. It's like, what's the point?
What are you
It just,
celebrating?
what are you celebrating? You didn't
Yeah.
accomplish anything. Earn it.
You're either in the game or you're just playing dress up, right?
Yeah. So
And
until we have something to accomplish, Angelica and I don't drink.
yeah, actually, I haven't in like 2 weeks. And honestly, it felt so good these last two Sundays to wake up. And I went to the gym and I was just like, dang, like it feels good to be strong.
The last time you drank, wasn't it the day you sold your first box?
This, yes, yes, I did.
Yeah, girl.
Thank
That's
you.
when we drink, baby
Yes.
girl. That's when we drink.
Yes. Like otherwise, and I was crying too because I was so emotional. It took me 9 months to make that box. So it felt well deserved to be like, you know what? I am going to enjoy myself. I am going to have a great time. I am going to look good, and I am going to go shop for some new makeup or things like that. But yeah, you're so right. It felt so good to drink. And yeah, I may have been a little like cloudy the next day, but I love that. Like, it's not that I'm binge drinking or anything. I'm not going so hard. Drinking to me is like 3 or 4 drinks. I'm good. And yeah, I want to drink when I do have accomplishments, because otherwise I feel like I'm putting myself even further behind. And
Yes.
it's easy to be comfortable. It's easy to be lazy. It's easy to take the easy way. But I just don't feel in this reality. I don't know how many realities I've had because I don't know how many lives I've had, but I just feel that, I have the energy and the time for it, so I'm going to go all in. It
Yes.
just sucks that, sometimes I talk to a family member or a friend and it's just like we talk about the relationships and it's just like I want to discuss investments. You know what I mean? Like I am
They're
super
just not going to be the people you do that with,
yeah.
unfortunately. So my suggestion would be a guiding light for them. Be like, hey, if this, if you want to know more about these areas, like I tell my family all the time, I'm like, I'm not going to pressure you guys, but if you guys want to know about investments, like I've learned how to do it. I've educated myself, and I'd be happy to teach you guys. Let me know if you want to go to college. I've obviously done it. So I don't pressure, I don't push. I just say, hey, I have this level of knowledge, and if you want it, it's there for you. And then after that, whatever they want to talk about, I meet them there.
You're so
And
right.
I'm cool with it because they're not. And the last thing I want to do is if I try to treat them like they're the people to talk about it, I'll make them feel bad. I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
I have people, I have
So
Angelica, I have other people that I could talk about too, about my business ventures, about my investing ventures. There's other people to talk about with those. Like, so you just learn, right audience,
yeah, you're
that's
so
it.
right.
That's it.
Speaking of transitioning, I know that you wanted to discuss, what it's like when you do, balancing that life of like, okay, I've had this crazy life, and then here I am with all these successful white people, like
So
it's a
climbing the socio-economic ladder is the weirdest and most uncomfortable thing to do because when you're trying to break out of where you came from, you're going to second guess the heck out of yourself because at the time when I was trying, when I landed my first like big girl career job, I was dating somebody from the hood at that time. Like hood, like we're talking domestic violence, emotional, mental abuse. Like this guy he was disgusting. And I remember like, I don't even know how I kept myself together to get this job, and immediately I'm making a really good salary. I'm traveling for work, which was my dream. And, this guy made my life miserable because he would remind me, anytime I talked about work or something, he'd be like, just remember where you came from. You're no better than me. You're no da 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 da. Like he just kept putting me down, putting me down. And I'm like, when did I say I was better than you? I'm still with you, dude. Like, what made you think that I was better than you? But on purpose, like, I wanted to start going to the finer restaurants and the nicer restaurants. And he's like, I just don't do that. So he would pull me back and he would take me to like these ghetto hood bars. And he's like, it's so much funner here. This is where our people are at. Like, don't forget where you came from. You're no better than us. Like, he kept trying to bring me down, which kept making me second guess myself. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I'm not acting like I'm all that. Like, I'm working my butt off. Nothing was handed to me. And so there's going to be people in your life when you're trying to break through to the next level, the next socioeconomic level that are going to point out that you've changed, that you're acting like you're stuck up or you think you're better than us. And again, like I said earlier, they're just pointing out how you're making them feel like in their own inadequacies because they're not trying to level up. And so you just keep reminding them by the way you're behaving and wanting more, it ends up pointing it out to them. But here's the funny part is, I eventually left that relationship and I kept climbing. I kept learning. I was reading books on personal development, following people on social media, learning everything I could learn about business etiquette, dining etiquette, etiquette as a female, just things that were just not taught to us. So, like how to do my makeup, how to do my hair, how to sit, how to properly sit. I was never taught how to properly sit, how to walk in heels, how to greet somebody, a professional greet. Like I had to learn everything from the ground up to be able to assimilate into the next level. And so after so much practice, I realized I'm like, oh, I'm blending in a little bit better now. I can blend in with this next level. But then there's moments where we girl boss a little too high and we're like, how the heck did I get in this room? Oh, they're gonna find out I'm a fraud. They're gonna find out I am just a first
Imposter.
generation Mexican American born to a single mother. Like I grew up in poverty. They're gonna see me for the fraud that I am. I don't belong in this room. And sometimes like when I am around so many accomplished people or wealthy people, I can get a little nervous and almost lose my confidence because we even though we have grown a lot, that I guess you could say that hood or whatever still is in us and it will sneak out and slip out from time to time and you're like, "Ooh, I shouldn't have said that curse word. Ooh, I shouldn't have done that." I'm like, "Oh, they're gonna find me out." I didn't
Anxiety. I know what you mean. I went to private school his whole life. Sorry, my husband went to private school his whole life. So like there were things like I remember when I first started dating him, I was like, bro. And he was like, bro, I'm not your bro. Like, why are you saying that? But I get what you mean. You go to these rooms and you feel like an imposter. You're like, oh crap. Like, and it didn't help that I put my story out there growing up with two parents in prison. And then I ended up being asked to be on the news to paint a different pathway for underserved children that didn't think that they deserved to be in the rooms that we're in. And so, like, every time I go up for an interview or I go sit in these rooms, I'm like, oh my gosh, please don't Google me, don't Google me, don't Google me. Like, and they're going to see right through me. And I don't like that. It's hard.
It is such a delicate dance because like we've worked so hard to be able to assimilate with that group of people. And now the funny thing is if I go back, and hang around somewhere in the like the hood and like a bar, I'm like, you see me dressed, like I stick out like a sore thumb. Then I try to go to these really fancy places and I'm like, ooh, I forgot the order of my silverware. Like, what comes next? Okay, which one's the water glass? Which one's my water glass? Which one's the wine glass? Like when you have the real fancy fine dining or like, oh, what's the proper etiquette to eat the oyster or the caviar? Like, I'm
Yeah.
gotta watch a YouTube tutorial before I sit down.
Yeah.
So even us, saying this to the audience, even us who have gotten, we somehow, some way got ourselves to that table, to that room, even we question ourselves if we're doing the right thing and we will be quiet and we will observe others. We will be less chatty because we're like, we don't want to mess it up. So we'll be watching everybody trying to pick up the
So
cue
right.
of like what's going on in the room. Yeah.
Yeah. Or their vocabulary is just like double. I'm like, gosh, like I wrote a lot of papers, but I had time to look at the definition for these words.
Yeah. I'm
And
sorry,
then
I don't
they
know
change
that
it.
word.
Yeah, and then later after a while I have like two words to Google whenever the meeting's done and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is kind of embarrassing or it just feels weird because we're
Yeah.
not like you say it all the time, we're not in the elite lane, but we're also not in the hood lane. So there's just this weird the lane. It's
Don't
weird.
belong anywhere. We don't fit anywhere. And then add another level of complexity that we're Latina and we're light skinned. Like, I don't fit with my Latinos. I don't fit in with the white people. I'm like, nobody wants to claim me. Like, I don't belong anywhere. I'm just like some oddball.
Yeah, you go to your families and everyone has the baby and babies and they're like looking at me and they're like, you're 30 with no kids. So then I'm like, gosh, like I just don't feel like I don't fit in. And then I go to work and they're like, we're going on a work meeting. And I'm like, oh crap, like I'm gonna have to talk to other people, I go, but now we talk to you guys.
There is one thing that I have learned though. Like, I feel like, you go from one extreme to another extreme, and I'm kind of like leveling out now. Um, Again, I grew up with a friend who had very well-off parents, and I always like admired her because like she always knew how to handle herself among very wealthy people, and I would always be very nervous. And she would always remind me, she's like, these are just normal people. They do everything that we do. They are just normal people. Do not put them on a pedestal. And it's really hard when you come from nothing to be in a room with wealthy people. It can be very intimidating, especially educated people, and you're not educated yet. Ooh, it's so, so scary. And she would constantly remind me that act, treat them like they're human beings because they are. Don't put them on a pedestal and don't act all like, oh my God, wow, you're so amazing. Like, because then you look like you don't belong. So it's a balance between knowing enough etiquette, knowing enough about how to handle yourself in that environment so that you do look like you belong, but it's a balance with also your authenticity because people of wealth and accomplishment can sniff fakeness a mile away. So if you show up real and authentically yourself, like they want to hear Angelica's story. They want to hear they love a comeback story. They love hearing that that you came from nothing and you made something of yourself. Like that's something real in their circle of fakeness. Like that was something that I always used to see her do, that she wrote this balance so well where, she was a child of immigrants, but her immigrant parents did very well. And she knew how to just be real with them, have real stories, have real like authenticity in her conversation that anyone she was around, they would be drawn to her because she had the comfort and confidence of being around wealthy, but she was also authentic. So I think it's that balance for us because we want to make sure that we're doing all the things so that we blend in. But sometimes I feel like I'm doing all the things so hard that I'm fake. I'm not fitting. So
No,
mixing it a little bit with your genuine authenticity of your story, of who you are. Don't be
agreed.
ashamed of it. Rock it, own it,
No.
be proud of it.
My husband always tells me, like, I always felt like he would always tell me, like, hey, like, none of my friends sit here and wear Gucci, Prada. They're not loud with their jewelry or, I mean, like logos, Dior, Gucci, purse, logos, they're not overdoing it because they could go buy the whole store.
Mhm.
So all they enjoy doing is sitting down and telling stories and having drinks. And he's always told me, he's like, and everyone gets home before 10 p.m. because anytime after 11, nothing good happens. And it's enough time for them to recover. They go home, they have their water, their skincare. And I will say this, like living in this other realm of the life, because we're somewhat more in the middle, but it's so odd because when I was a teen, all I did was have a t-shirt and like some shorts to sleep in. But now I'm like, okay, I have a PJ set for every day of the week. I have my floss, I have my toothbrush, I do my skincare. Like it's a whole ordeal to go to bed. Like I do my vitamins versus when I was poor or when I was younger, like just sleep wherever on the couch. Like, no, I have a legit like Monday night PJs, Tuesday night PJs. Like it's a whole white kind of life. Like even for my husband, and I don't know. It makes me feel a sense of security. You know,
Yeah. And again, just doing those little things that make you feel
normal.
good, confident, um, expensive. It's little things like that. I remember I went back to go visit my family and I had like this matching pajama set, like from Victoria's Secret or something, and my sister was like, "Look at you all bougie." I was like, "They're just pajamas."
uh,
I
but
know.
you put certain things on to feel a certain way so you can continue. Like just like at one point I took a semester of nursing school because I thought I wanted to be a nurse, but I wore the scrubs for like 3 days and I was like, nah, this ain't hitting. You know what I mean? But you have to do that so that way you are that person throughout the whole day, the whole evening. You're wearing it. That's who you want to be, who you are. And so when you do things like that, you're manifesting little details that later apply to your life. And then you're like, oh yeah, I made it. You know?
Yeah, you're so right. It's like some subconscious messages you're telling yourself that I am wealthy, I am valuable, I am worthy, and this is how I'm showing you by all of these little actions. And until eventually your brain just gets programmed like that to keep
And then
looking
yeah.
for those things.
And then you go home and it's, you go back and they're like, they just kind of look at you kind of weird, or you bring your little suitcase and my dad doesn't even have covers in the guest room like that. you know? So just things like that, it makes you feel weird, and then you go out and you take your parents to try to show them, and they do enjoy it. Like you said, they're grateful for it. Um, but yeah, it's a weird shell that we're in. Like you said, we're both white complected, both educated, but yet like we still have our hood side, and I don't it's complex, and I think it's a lot more complex than people put focus to on it. Like I really do find it hard to struggle because I even get nervous with the podcast. I'm like, I hope I didn't say something bad for to offend anyone because I know my family watches, and I don't want them to think like I'm sending any messages to friends or families or anything like that. This is solely based on our experiences and where we're going. Because if people are watching this, it's for them. Obviously, they want to know what it's like to grow and be better, and that's what this is for. So I feel like leaving these little drops of hints on where they're going is important, because then they're going to know when they do get to that path. Oh, Jasmine and Angelica spoke about this, so this is normal to feel this way. We didn't
Yeah.
have that.
Yes, yes. No, we kind of learned things the hard way and kind of stumbled and learned things by doing them. But, again, to reiterate what Angelica's saying is any story that we share, whether it's about friends or family, it's not to highlight anything wrong with our friends and family. They're perfect as they are. We love them where they are and as they are. What we're talking about is ourselves, how we have had to navigate because we were the ones that chose to change. They didn't. It was us. So we take full ownership of that. So by changing, these were some of the challenges that we experienced. And yes, when we haven't done the proper personal development, we tend to look outward and go like, what's wrong with you guys? But the reality was nothing. That was what they were taught. That's what they kept doing. So naturally, that's what they would keep doing. It was us that chose a different path. So we have to take ownership on how we navigate this world. And our goal is not to hurt other people because they decided they didn't want to change. There's nothing wrong with that choice. If that's how that makes you happy, then please keep doing that path because we want you happy. Unfortunately, our happy it's a much bigger mountain. We have an insatiable appetite for life and everything that we want to experience and accomplish before we die. I just know, like, if you end up taking this path, it's not easy. Yes, you're going to see us when we're at our top of our mountain, when Angelica is like selling her watch box and enjoying some champagne. And same thing for me, as I'm making my accomplishments. You might see me at a fancy restaurant and I look great and fancy and fabulous, but there was so much that had to happen behind the scenes for us to get there. And it wasn't pretty. And a lot of it was painful and emotional and almost mourning the death of the older version. But just because we mourn the life that we had before doesn't mean we have to completely abandon that family or anything like that. We have to navigate it a little differently now because we
It's
want to continue
lonely.
moving
It's
forward.
lonely.
Only it can be until you find your tribe, and then
Yeah.
you've got to make room though. That's the problem. You have to be brave enough to make room for the people to come in. If you're still spending time with people of the old lifestyle, you're not going to have room for the people with the new lifestyle. So you have to be okay to have some loneliness, some space, so that you will be sharp enough to identify, oh, this is somebody I can add to my tribe. And before I met Angelica, I was wandering. I'm not going to say exactly where I was at, but I'm wandering the new state that I was in kind of by myself and met her at a meetup. And I found her because I was looking for people like her. I wasn't going places that were just filling up my time. I intentionally sought out a meetup for like minded individuals and found her. Like intentional, intentional, intentional. Make sure that every move that you make is with intention towards that goal. Always ask yourself, going to this event, talking to this person, does it align with the goal of where I'm trying to go? And like Angelica says, and I started saying it to myself, what are we trying to accomplish? I love that. I'm like, what are we trying to accomplish? If I go on a date with this guy, what am I trying to accomplish? Are you genuinely considering this person as marriage material? Are you just bored? Or are you just looking for somebody to buy a meal? If that's the case, then you're going with the wrong intention, and that is wasting his time, wasting your time. Same thing, if you're going to spend time with this friend, are you spending time with them because you're bored or do your goals align? And maybe you building that relationship will help both of you guys get closer to your goals. Always think about that. What are we trying to accomplish? And does this interaction accomplish that? Now,
Right.
for the question of like family, like with me is I love my family. They respect me. They respect my lifestyle, and we've learned a very harmonious balance where they live their life and do their path, and I live my life and live my path, and we can still love each other and support each other and cheer each other on. It's a beautiful relationship. So with me, anytime I can spend time with them, talk to them, hear them out, shower them with love, to me, I'm like, okay, that pushes my goal of being close to my family, which is important to me in that case, because they're not hurting me in any way. They're not stifling my progress, nothing like that. So as long as that's not an issue, then we're all good.
There we go. You feel like that's a good note to end on?
Yeah, I think that's
It was
perfect.
amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I hope that they see this and they get some clarity and to where they're going, whether that be their partner, their friends, their family, or the people that they're just around. And know you got to put yourself first, and there's no price on peace.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, just know that this journey isn't easy, and we never promised that it would be easy. We only promised that it'd be worth it. So, on that note, I hope you guys have a fabulous day, fabulous week, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace out.